What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here live to break down another NFL division, this time the NFC North. And I'm very excited to break down the NFC North because this is a division that I feel I talk about the most on my channel. And I feel that I have a lot of fans, a lot of subscribers that watch and view this channel that are fans of teams within this division. So I'm excited to break down the NFC North, not only because of that, but also due to the fact that this division, I think, is the one that is the most up in the air and maybe the most unpredictable division of the NFL entering 2020. And there's a lot of players and teams that I really like within this division. And realistically, I think this is one of maybe two, but I would say the division that I would say tops the list for any team in the NFC North could make the playoffs in 2020, and I would not be surprised. That is this division this year. It is completely wide open. Any four of these teams has a legitimate shot at making the playoffs and at winning this division. So before I break down this division, the NFC North, make sure you do Gronk, spike the like button, and subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL breakdowns and previews just like this. Also, comment your opinion, whether you're live or you're here after the fact. Comment your opinion on the NFC North. Let me know your standings, how you see your favorite team doing this year, and how you see the NFC North shaking out in 2020. All right, so we're going to start off with this division with the team that I feel is least likely to win the division, and that is the Chicago Bears. I feel the Chicago Bears are the worst team in this division, personally. I think they're the team that is more than likely going to finish at the bottom of the standings this year. But am I saying that it's unrealistic to expect that they could make their way into a playoff spot? No. Is it unrealistic that they could win this division? No, they could. I mean, they did 2 years ago, right? But I think they have the least likely chance to win the division. All right? So I have them fourth. Their offense is one of the worst in the NFL. There is no debate around it, no matter who the quarterback is. You know, I'm starting with Trubisky here. Okay, they're starting Trubisky. They made that decision. They officially announced it, I believe, today or yesterday, one or the other. And their defense, to me, is top 10. And I think the defense is the reason I would say maybe they got a shot, because if this defense can be truly special the way it was a couple of years ago, they have an opportunity to get away with a mediocre or below average defense. So that's the way that you kind of look at this team. If they can win low scoring games and get just enough out of their defense, or offense, I should say, and be carried by this defense, then maybe they got a shot at winning this division. Now, great thing for Chicago fans. They face a very easy schedule. This is a cupcake schedule they face this year. So if they do have that outside opportunity to win the division, it will be thanks to the opponents they play. They have a very weak schedule. And I would say that about both Chicago and Detroit, the two teams that are at the bottom of the consensus of these divisions here in the NFC North. Most people look at their schedule saying it's pretty weak in comparison to Green Bay and Minnesota, who both made the playoffs last year, and both are playing a first and second place schedule. I think especially because, you know, when you look at the first and second place schedules, you have to look at who they're playing that finished first and second a year ago, right? So just for comparison, right? So Chicago finished third last year in the NFC North. So they would be playing, I believe, you know, the Rams in the NFC West instead of the Packers playing the Saints. right? So that's a huge, or not the Saints, the 49ers, sorry. But that's another one. The Saints would be playing the Packers while the Bucs are playing the Bears. Bad example, but you get what I'm saying, right? More often than not, the third place team that finished third last year is worse than the team that finished first last year. So it's a slight difference in one or two games that can get you the edge in a division. It truly is a difference in the NFL, given that the NFL is so close in terms of talent pool and in terms of teams from season to season. It makes it a huge difference, those one or two games that you get an edge in your schedule. So that is something positive to look at for Bears fans. Now, something negative to look at for Bears fans is the offense. So let's pull up the offense real quick. It is by far the worst offense in this division. There is no question about it. Now, and of course, I screwed up the graphic on the right guard position, but everything else is correct. Ted Ginn, 84th best receiver, right? He's their third receiver now. I'm not sure if they're going to have any competition at that spot. I know they have Cordell Patterson looking at like running back and receiver, like he's kind of doing everything. I don't know if they still have promise in that young Ridley, Calvin Ridley's brother. Anthony Miller, he's mediocre, right? He's mediocre. At best, maybe he breaks out this year. Maybe he has his breakout season. Jimmy Graham, pretty bad. I mean, he was terrible for the Packers last year. I mean, that's not a tight end any longer that can separate from man-to-man coverage. He can find the soft spots in the zone. He can't really run the way he used to. He can't really leap the way he used to. But he has the hands and he's smart and he's better than what they had probably, but not much better, Jimmy Graham. I don't expect some weird like retransformation to his prime of the Saints. Allen Robinson is underrated. He's really good. To me, he's a top 15 receiver. Now, Trubisky I have at number 30. I actually had Nick Foles initially ranked at number 30, but I just made the combination of the Bears quarterbacks at number 30 because I do feel like what they do within this scheme, Nagy is smart enough to realize to shift the offense towards the skill sets of Trubisky and Foles. But what I have to say about this is I have to at least give Trubisky credit for winning the quarterback competition. So knowing that he won the quarterback competition, I have to at least say, okay, he probably is better than Nick Foles. And if I had Nick Foles ranked at 30, I got to put Trubisky there too. Even though I wouldn't have said that before, right? We saw that Trubisky won the competition. I have Tariq Cohen there because David Montgomery is injured. I don't think he'll be playing week 1, but I put both Montgomery and Cohen, again, just like their quarterback position, both at 27. Never mind Coward. He's nowhere near 7th. Don't worry about that. Whitehair and Daniels are by far their two best offensive linemen, and that is by far their strongest part of their offensive line. But they have legitimate concerns at the tackle position, where they have two of the worst starters at left and right tackle in the NFL. And versus especially the Packers and the Vikings, those are huge concerns when you play those teams in your own division. And how you're going to be able to pass the ball in big passing situations versus Arias and Preston Smith and Daniil Hunter and Yannick Ngakoue. I mean, that's going to be a mismatch for your team each and every week. Now, the Bears offensively, I just have not loved what Nagy has done from a scheme perspective for basically his entire Bears head coaching career. He's had his moments, especially the year that they went to the playoffs, and I think he did well with Trubisky, who is quite limited as a passer. But if you're going to have Trubisky as your starter, you need to use his legs more. You need to use the athletic profile of Trubisky better because that's what he's good at, okay? Get him outside the pocket. Let him run some bootlegs. Let him legitimately run, okay? Like, do some read option game with him. If you're going to win with Trubisky, it's not going to be because You line them up in shotgun. You think you're Andy Reid and you're saying you have Patrick Mahomes. That's been the problem with Nagy thus far as their offensive scheme and offensive coach. He's trying to make their quarterback Patrick Mahomes. That's just not the case. That's not realistic, okay? Yes, you were from Andy Reid. Yes, you're trying to run Andy Reid's offense, but Trubisky is not Patrick Mahomes. Do what he's good at, okay? Run him into the ground. This is the season he needs to prove himself. And his best asset has been running the ball. So if you want to get victories in the NFL, run Trubisky, okay? Run him. Run him 10 times a game because he's good at that, okay? If you want to start Trubisky, do it. I'm just saying, all right? Because you're not going to be lining up versus the defenses in this division and in the NFC and saying Trubisky's going to shred you and dot you up with his arm. It's not going to happen, okay? Run the ball and stop being so, like, I don't know, like fancy, I guess. Like, the problem with Nagy has been just his unreliability to just line up and play. I mean, he does some of the wackiest play calls and like schemes I've ever seen. None of them seem to work. The guy has 3 trick plays a week, and it's in the dumbest, lamest situations you could think of. To me, he just needs to simplify the offense. I believe, at least. That's my opinion on it. Yeah. I thought Nick Foles was going to start. I'm kind of disappointed he didn't because you traded for him and his contract. So I don't really understand why he's not starting. I guess Trubisky was just much better in camp. In that case, you're rather in a good spot because Trubisky has improved, or you're in a really bad spot because Foles is really that bad. Either way, it's kind of interesting. I'm intrigued to see them week 1 and what they look like if they shift or change this offense at all. And their tight end play. I mean, they added like 15 tight ends to this offense. So are they going to utilize 2-3 tight end sets? Are they going to go more power football? Because that has been maybe the biggest weakness of the Bears, has been their ability to run the ball consistently and run it in a power fashion. I mean, you rarely see I formations. You rarely see a fullback for Chicago. You rarely see that style. And I feel that's the style that would best fit Mitchell Trubisky. So while I know that everyone wants to hate on Trubisky, and I'm not saying he's good, okay? I'm not saying he is good. I'm not saying he's a starter. But can you at least give the guy an opportunity to play to his strengths? And that's been my problem with Matt Nagy thus far as the coach of the Bears. He's supposed to be this offensive genius, and he's not so far. Now, defensively, they're good, okay? They are maybe borderline very good. If they finish top 5, if they finish top 3, I would not be surprised. Now, let's check out their defense. Eddie Jackson, stud at free safety. Now, if this defense is going to be, top 3 again, he needs to be the playmaker he was 2 seasons ago. Last year, he didn't make the plays he did in 2018. Roquan Smith is an up-and-coming linebacker. While some may say he's already top 20, I'm not quite there yet, but he is well on his way. Danny Trevathan is a solid NFL linebacker. Probably nothing more at this point in his career. Their defensive line is very good. It would have been better if Eddie Goldman were to suit up. And they do have quite a few depth pieces on the defensive line as well. And they added a couple behind Hicks. Hicks is phenomenal when he plays. Last year he was injured. Khalil Mack, very good. Took a step back last year. Robert Quinn, good number 2. I don't think he's a number 1, but he's going to be a nice complementary piece to Khalil Mack. Fuller, I have outside my top 20 corners. I thought in 2018 he played that way, Pro Bowl level, but last year he was pretty bad. Jalen Johnson, we'll see how he does as a rookie. Buster Screen, he's probably a below average nickel corner, and he's only getting older. And Roy Robertson Harris is solid. I think he's kind of underrated. He's probably their most underrated player defensively. he steps up and plays well whenever he is called upon. So their defense is good. I think specifically the front seven. They'll be very good versus the run. You do question how they'll miss Eddie Goldman as that big boy inside. But outside of that, I really like the combo of Quinn and Mack on the outside. I think Hicks is awesome in the inside. And if Roquan Smith can take another step forward, then they're well on their way to being a top 10 defense. Their biggest question is at their cornerback position. How good are they going to be matching up man on man? While this is more of a zone heavy scheme, when they do have to match up, how does that look? And can Fuller regain Pro Bowl form? That's another question for them. Strong safety as well. A little bit regression at that spot. Losing Clinton Dix, who I understand was cut for Dallas this offseason, but he played quite well for them last year. It's going to be Bush. It's going to be Gibson for them at strong safety. Can they get good play out of that position again? And I have no reason to think that they won't, because they've been very good at scheming up the strong safety position. So they should be fine there. So overall, I like the defense, but I don't think it's good enough to carry a team. I honestly don't think any defense in the NFL is good enough to carry a team. It's very, very rare in 2020 NFL that is the case. Very, very rare. So ultimately, guys, I'm going to give you my record. And my record for the Chicago Bears is 5-11. Now, this is going to hurt for Bears fans, but I just don't like the offense. I don't like the quarterback position. I don't like the coach very much. And I think the offensive line is kind of trash. They really have one receiver that they can count on. Maybe Anthony Miller steps up as a decent number 2 option, but in no way, shape, or form will he be an elite number 2 option. They made some moves that I like. I like the Robert Quinn signing for this year. But the problem is, I don't think Chicago is a team that's going to be competing this year. So I do question that they're making moves for right now when this is a team that really needs to start the rebuilding process, looking for their next quarterback, because I don't think Trubisky is the answer, and probably looking for some big-time offensive line and receiving options. So 5-11, 6-10, that around there is my prediction. And I think mostly it has to do with the offense. I just think they are without a doubt going to be a terrible offense, and that is going to completely hinder their defense, put them on the field, wear them out, and teams will eventually break through their defense. That is, again, very strong. Their ceiling would be 10-6. It would be a similar season to what they had a couple seasons ago, where Trubisky does well enough. He's kind of schemed up to do well and perform well at a high level, and their defense performs at a very elite level. That would be the ceiling. And their offensive line regains 2018 form. Their floor is 3-13. Their floor would be their quarterback, no matter who it is the worst in the league. Their offensive line is dreadful. They can't run the football. And maybe they have a couple injuries defensively, which hurts them as well, so their defense isn't able to hold up. So that's my prediction for the Bears. 4th place in the NFC North, 5-11. Sorry, Bears fans, I don't hate your team. This is just how I feel about your team in 2020. All right, so the Chicago Bears are down. The next team we're going to discuss is the team I have finishing in 3rd place in the NFC North. This team went to the playoffs last year, and this team actually won a playoff game going to New Orleans and upsetting the Saints and going to the divisional round, looking good in the first half versus the 49ers, and then eventually getting run over. The Vikings are my number 3 team in the NFC North. There are a lot of people that think the Vikings are going to win this division, but I'm going to explain why I do not think that's going to be the case this year. The Vikings, I think, are a pretty mediocre roster this season. This season. Not last season, not next season, not 2017. This season, okay? The Vikings, I feel, are a pretty mediocre roster. They have great players. Danielle Hunter, great. Eric Kendricks, Harrison Smith, Anthony Harris, Yannick Ngakoue, Adam Thielen, great players, but they also have a lot of question marks. A lot of question marks this year more than any year I can remember under Zimmer and with Kirk Cousins. This team has a lot of questions, specifically on defense, where they've been very strong under Zimmer. But this year, I think they're going to struggle more than most years we've seen. Let's look at their offense. The Vikings offense, Adam Thielen, he's going to have to be healthy, first off, stay on the field. But I love him. I think he's going to have a huge year. I think he is honestly underrated. I think he is a better downfield receiver than he's given credit for. He's also fantastic in the slot, as you know. But this team's going to be a heavy 12 personnel team. That means 2 tight ends and 1 running back. They were last year. And the question I have about this offense is more to do with scheme than to do with talent. I think their talent is fine, while they did lose a big-time receiver in Stephon Diggs, in my opinion, a top 10 option at the position. That's going to hurt them a lot in this regard. It's going to hurt them down the field. It's going to hurt them down the field. It's going to hurt when it comes to scheming up downfield throws and downfield big plays. The Vikings are going to be missing that element to their offense this year. They really do not have a deep threat the caliber of Diggs or anywhere close to be able to hit that big play off of their play action that they love to run. Now, scheme-wise, of course, they lost their offensive coordinator. And now they have Gary Kubiak, who some Vikings fans will say was more involved than Stefanski offensively last year, and I get that. But what I've seen from Kubiak often over the course of his career is he is very, very vanilla. He has very good fundamental aspects to his offense, very much like Mike and Kyle Shanahan, very similar offense, but he does not add a lot of flair or a lot of little touches to the offense. It's very mediocre. It's very vanilla. And I think we're going to see less flair, more vanilla from this offense this year with no Diggs. And I think this offensive line scares me. You look across the board, they don't really have any top 20 options or even, top 15, top 20 options across this line at tackle, center, or guard. And that scares me. It is a very mediocre to below average offensive line. They play well in the run game, but when it comes to the passing game, they do struggle. Now, I like Kirk Cousins. I think he's a good quarterback. He's smart, but he's not a guy that it can carry a team. Dalvin Cook is a fantastic running back. He has great explosive ability. But again, if everybody is stacking the box without Diggs there, teams are not afraid of Adam Thielen running down the field and burning them. They just aren't. He's a very good route runner. He'll get open. He'll have his games. He'll have his catches. But they're not afraid of him stretching the field. They were afraid of Diggs. Cook is going to struggle more this year than last year because of that. Because more teams are going to be playing the run versus them. And Cousins is not a guy that can carry a team. And the one thing I've noticed about the Vikings since getting Cousins is they've struggled allowing him to be successful in the drop back passing game. When they are not running play action, Kirk Cousins has struggled in third and long situations, in passing downs, because their offense is very, again, the word vanilla when it comes to passing concepts. They are all about running the ball and play action. And because their defense, which we'll get to, is going to be weaker, they're going to be more in pure passing situations this year where, again, they have struggled. And again, their offensive line is not great in those situations. And that's why I'm down on the Vikings this year. And it sucks for me to say this because I've been down on the Vikings, I think, the last 2 years. And I was wrong last year because I wasn't sold on the offensive line. But last year, we saw everything come together for them, from Cousins to Cook to their receiving game, to their receivers, to their offensive line playing over their heads, to their defense performing. But this year, I think it's going to be different. I think they need to take a step back before they can take a step forward. And this is why. Their defense. Their defense is a reason they have to take a step back before they can take a step forward. Their defense has very good players, but they're also very, very young. You look at their cornerback position, Mike Hughes is 21st ranked nickel in my opinion. I'm not sure if he's going to play nickel or if Gladney's going to play nickel. I assume it will be Hughes, but regardless, Their cornerback position is very, very young. Gladney is a rookie, yes, first-round pick, but a rookie that's never played a snap in the NFL, not even preseason. Cam Dantzler, I like coming out of the draft, but another rookie, third-rounder this time, starting at corner. Hughes, starting at corner, never really played a lot of starting snaps. I liked him coming out, but he's unproven as well. I love their edge position with Ngakoue. That move was excellent. And Daniil Hunter, amazing player. But their defensive line, they lost Linval Joseph, and the guy they replaced him, Michael Pierce, he opted out. So their interior defensive line with the big D tackle that stops the run, they don't have that guy now. They're missing that guy. So therefore, they're going to be weaker at holding up blocks and stuffing the run. As good as Kendricks and Barr are, they're often stressed thin within this defense. Anthony Barr is actually underrated because he does so much for this defense that people look at him, and when he gets beat by a slot receiver down the field for 20 yards, people are like, Anthony Barr sucks in coverage. No, it's the fact that he's a linebacker at 240 pounds and he's having to cover Cooper Kupp for 20 yards. Like, that shouldn't be a thing. And some offensive schemes and quarterbacks have been able to pick apart this defense in games and in moments because of the zone coverage and because of the concepts that can be stressed and because of these linebackers being stressed thin. I love the safety position, but I mean, are they going to really be the difference here? Are they really going to be the difference? So, I mean, they're still going to be a top 15 defense as I have them ranked. And the reason I have, somebody said, how is Ngakoue 25th? Because he's not great versus the run. He's very one-dimensional. That's why. But I have them ranked 14th. They're a top 15 defense still, but I am concerned about the secondary. And I wouldn't be concerned about the secondary if they weren't playing good passing offenses. Okay, so let's just look at the Minnesota Vikings schedule. Let's just look that up real quick. So this is the quarterbacks they play on their schedule, and these are the passing offenses they play. This is why I'm concerned about it. So they play Aaron Rodgers twice. All right. They play Deshaun Watson. They play Russell Wilson. They play Matt Ryan. They play Matt Stafford twice. They play Dak Prescott. They play Tom Brady. They play Drew Brees. And they play Phillip Rivers. Okay. So those are all precision, smart, intelligent, veteran quarterbacks. Those guys are going to be able to take advantage of a weaker secondary that is young. Okay, so that is why I am most concerned about this secondary. Zimmer is awesome, and that's why I have them in the top 15. And I think their scheme is great. But they have never had this talent, questionable talent before on defense. They've always had strong players in their scheme. So Minnesota, I have third. My record prediction for the Vikings this year is 7-9. Yes, that seems pretty bad. I was going to go with 8-8, and I had 8-8 before, but just the way it worked out, and I mean, I could see them still making the playoffs. It's been overly negative for the Vikings, so I'm not trying to be overly negative, but I can still see them winning this division and making the playoffs. So that's their ceiling of being 10-6. I'm not completely writing them off at all. I'm just giving you my thoughts on why I have them here, because I think a lot of people have the Vikings in the playoffs or winning this division when I just don't feel the same way. So that's why I have to explain myself in a negative fashion. I hope you guys understand that. But my ceiling is 10-6. My floor is 6-10. My floor would be, okay, their offensive line is terrible like a couple seasons ago. Their defense really, none of their young guys step up. That would be their floor. But I think it's going to be like a 7-9, 8-8, 9-7 season. It's going to be somewhere in there. They'll be competing all year long. They'll be tough. But I just don't think they're really awesome in any area. I think they have a good running game, but if you're going to be great in any area, you probably don't want it to be your running game, right? They're weak versus the pass. They're weak at passing the ball. So those are two areas that you need to be strong at in 2020, and the Vikings just are not, in my opinion. Guys, I'm going to keep it rolling. I have a fantasy draft in 40 minutes, so I'm going to take your predictions at the end of the video. I'm going to keep it rolling, so make sure you stick around to the end because I know it's going to get controversial once we get to the end. So make sure you stick around and then you can give me your predictions and I'll read everybody's predictions out and some comments and questions. All right. So let's get to the next team. The team that I have finishing second this year in the NFC North is a team that made, again, the playoffs last year, and a team that made the NFC Championship game. I have the Green Bay Packers finishing second in the NFC North. The Green Bay Packers, 19th offense, 18th defense, very much like the Vikings. Very mediocre on both sides of the football, I think. Now, not mostly because of talent. I think it has more to do with scheme, in my opinion. I'm not a huge LaFleur fan. I'm not. He's fine, but I don't think he's like great. He's definitely not on the McVay or Shanahan level. And then defensively, they do have major concerns. Is this a team that can win the division? Absolutely. No question. Absolutely. They have Aaron Rodgers. Let's just start there, okay? They have Aaron Rodgers, so they have a chance, right? And they have a lot of elite players. They have Zadarius Smith. They have Preston Smith. They have Kenny Clark. They have Alexander. They have Adrian Amos. I think Darnell Savage is going to be really good. They have offensive line-wise, David Bakhtiari, Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones. They have a lot of great players. But in 2020, you are going to need depth, okay? And they don't in a lot of key areas outside of like running back, which, I mean, everybody has depth at running back. It's the most replaceable position in the league. So let's start with the offense. This offensive line is really good on the left side. The right side is highly questionable. Now, I did read that Billy Turner is going to be their starter at right tackle, but he's already injured right now. So if he is, and I believe Wagner is also injured. So whoever starts at right tackle, they're about 50 to 60 range. They're probably a mediocre to below average tackle in the league. Right guard, they're fine, but not spectacular. But center, left guard, left tackle, fantastic. Especially David Bakhtiari, who you could argue is the best pass-blocking tackle in the NFL. Their receiver position is very weak. Alan Lazard is solid. I think he can be a fine number 2, but I would argue that he's only a fine number 2 with Aaron Rodgers passing the ball. Marquise Valdes-Scantling is a field stretcher. He has great speed, but he is very one-dimensional. And it didn't look like last year Aaron Rodgers trusted it very much. Devontae Adams is fantastic. Arguably the best route runner in the league. They don't really have anything at tight end. Sternberger at 36, I think, was like one of the lowest tight ends I ranked, because I did rank some teams for two tight ends. And then Aaron Jones at 10. He's a top 10, top 12 running back in my opinion. I think he'll regress slightly this year in terms of production and stats, but I think he'll still be good. And they also drafted A.J. Dillon, who I'm a fan of as well. So their offense, this is a problem I have with their offense. I feel the same way about Minnesota and Green Bay. I think they are going to be very iffy in the passing game. When they need to pass the ball, they're iffy because they have one guy. They have Devontae Adams. So if you're playing a smart defense, a good defense, a talented secondary, they can at least fare decently well versus Devontae Adams. If a team has one shutdown corner, they're capable of at least minimizing Adams, or they could double team Adams, and now you're forcing Rodgers to go elsewhere with the football, and the question is, can any of those other guys step up and make a play? And I just don't know if they can. Now, running-wise, they don't have Brian Bulaga anymore, which might be the most underrated loss of this team and this division overall. Brian Bulaga is one of the best right tackles in the NFL as a pass and run blocker, so that's a big loss that they're going to miss. And that's going to hurt in the pass and the run game. I think their run game will still be good, but I don't think it's going to be, quite as good as it was last year. I think teams are going to have more of a beat on what LaFleur likes to do, given it's his second season. They have a full offseason of film, and they're going to understand what they're looking at coming into a game. And now the Packers have kind of been exposed on the opposite side of the football. Teams know what their weakness is coming into the 2020 season. They know that running the football torched the Packers defense. And let's get into that defense. So the defense. The defense is solid in areas. I think they do have one of the top 10 pass defenses in the NFL. Darnell Savage, Adrian Amos, great safety combo. I think Savage could be a top 10 guy soon. Alexander already, to me, is a top 10 cornerback. Kevin King is a solid number 2 cornerback. And Sullivan, I think, will replace Tramon Williams decently. I feel like I would like to have seen them re-sign Tramon Williams, or at least a little bit of corner depth, because if one of these guys goes down, they are in trouble. Now, defensive line-wise, Kenny Clark, I think, is one of the most underrated defensive players in the NFL, and Zadarius Smith is also incredible. Preston Smith is very good as well. But their linebacker position and their interior defensive line is what scared me about their defense. Teams last year, like the 49ers, they got ran over. And the other thing that scares me is not really their talent or the scheme or anything to do with that, but they just played a really easy schedule last year. And they played a lot of one-score games that they ended up being on the lucky side more often than not. They ended up winning a lot of 6-point, 8-point games, maybe 3-point games. You know, you could just pull up their schedule from 2019 and look at their team. And let's actually do that and check that out real quick. So 2019 Packers. Let's do that. Just to prove my case so I don't have to get you guys searching. So, last year, week 1, they beat the Bears 10-3. Okay? Week 2, 21-16 over the Vikings. They beat, let's see, the Lions by 1 in week 6. They beat the Chiefs without Mahomes 31-24. They beat the Panthers. I remember that was a snow game. 24-16. The Panthers, who were terrible. They beat the Washington football team 20-15. They beat the Bears again 21-13. They beat the Lions week 17 in a must-win game 23-20 without Matt Stafford. So they had a lot of games that were super close and competitive versus a lot of bad teams. And you notice why I'm saying all these wins. They did not beat one good team last year outside of the team in their division, the Vikings. They beat the Chiefs without Mahomes. Okay, their wins. Let's just go through them. They beat the Bears, the Vikings, the Broncos without Drew Lock. They lost to the Eagles. They beat the Cowboys, who didn't make the playoffs. They beat the Lions once with Matt Stafford on the Trey Flowers weird 2 holding call things. I don't even know what the hell that was. They beat the Raiders in that game where Derek Carr tried to extend the football, I think. They beat the Chiefs. They lost to the Chargers by 15. They beat the Panthers. They lost the 49ers. They beat the Giants. They beat Washington. They beat Chicago twice. They beat the Vikings twice. Like, the only good team they beat were the Vikings. That's it. That's it. Okay, and I understand you'll say they win the playoffs. They beat the Seahawks. Okay, they did. They did. But the Seahawks were very injured. I think they had Marshawn Lynch and Travis Homer at running back in that game. So, I mean, I just think they're a huge regression candidate. So, it's not that I'm trying to hate on the Packers. Again, they could easily make and win this division. But that's just looking at the facts objectively. So this is their record. I have the Packers finishing 8-8, missing the playoffs as the number 8 or 9 seed in the NFC. Their ceiling is 11-5. Their floor is 7-9. I don't see them going any worse than 7-9. That would be pretty bad. But I could easily see them going 9-7, 10-6, 11-5, winning the division and making the playoffs. But I think more likely than not, this team is going to be 8-8 or 9-7. And honestly, I feel bad because I want to see Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. I want to see Aaron Rodgers lighting the NFL on fire. But I just don't think that's going to be the case because he's not supported with the right offensive weapons to make it happen. So the Packers, I have it 8-8. All right. Are we ready? Are we ready, guys? Are we ready? I want to see, are we ready? I want to see we're ready in the chat. Can we get we're ready? Can we get it? We're ready. Let's see it. I want to see it in the chat. And guys, before we get to the Lions, make sure you do Gronk spike the like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL vids just like this. All right, let's get to the Lions. So, the Detroit Lions. You see it? The Detroit Lions are going to finish first. You heard it here first. Record this on your phone. Take a picture of this video. All right? The Detroit Lions are going to win the NFC North in 2020. The Detroit Lions are going to go to the playoffs. And the Detroit Lions will be the best team in this division. The Detroit Lions have the best offense in this division, the best secondary in this division, and the best, in my opinion, I think, mix of they need to do it right now. Their backs are against the wall. And they need to perform. And they also have a lot of guys that are very highly motivated right now. Those are external things that you don't see on paper, but that's the case. So let's get to, I can't really say it without getting to their offense or defense. I made a video way back. I mean, this was in February or March. Okay, let's actually get to some of the points I had in that video. So let's start with that, okay? So one of the points I had in that Lions video that I made way back, was I made the case that the Lions were extremely unlucky a year ago, and that is almost unrepeatable in 2020. Now, one of the cases I made for this 3-12-1 team was this. Let's start with this. So, let's take a look at the games that they played with Matthew Stafford at quarterback. The 2019 Lions, not the 2020 Lions with better talent than the 2019 Lions, the 2019 Lions. Okay, so first week they played the Cardinals and Kyler Murray. They tied. Now, they tied despite having over 100 more yards than their opponent. And they tied in a game where they really should have won that game. Okay, if you watch that game, you understand why. But it was tied, 27-27. Fair enough, okay? The next 2 weeks, they win. They start 2-0-1. They're undefeated at this point, all right? They beat the Eagles, who made the playoffs, and they beat the Chargers, 27-24 and 13-10. The next week, they outgain the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs and lose 34-30 in a game where they, again, very easily should have won that game. There was a weird fumble call at the end of the game, I think, that happened that it shouldn't have happened. It was a classic Lions loss. But regardless, win or loss, they lost to the Chiefs by less than one score. It was 4 points, okay? Less than one touchdown. They go into their bye week 2-1-1. They then play the Packers. They lose 23-22 in Lambeau Field on Monday night. That is the game where Trey Flowers had those two hands to the face penalties that you can go back and watch that game, and there clearly were bad calls. So in 2 games in a row, they basically got screwed by the refs. But that's classic Lions. So I'm just going to say they lost that game. Regardless, the Packers last year made the playoffs, like we just discussed. Sure, did they get lucky a little bit with schedule? Yes, but they made the playoffs. They lost to them by 1 point on the road. Division opponent, fair enough. Okay? And they lost to the Vikings, 42-30. They beat the Giants. So with Matthew Stafford, they were 3-4-1. They lost to the Chiefs, who won the Super Bowl, the Eagles, who won the NFC East, the Packers, who won the NFC North, the Vikings, who finished second in the NFC North and beat the Saints, and they lost to the Raiders and Giants. Or no, they beat the Giants and they lost to the Raiders. But that was with Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford in that run was on pace for leading the NFL in yards and touchdown passes with 36 touchdown passes or 38 touchdown passes and over 5,000 yards. In those games again, they last year, and you even go past, how they did without Matt Stafford, right? They go on to lose to the Bears by 7 without Matt Stafford. They didn't win a single game without Stafford. They lost to the Cowboys by 8 without Stafford. They lost to Washington by 3 without Stafford. They lost to the Bears by 4. They lost to the Packers in the last game of the year by 3. So they lost a lot of one-score games without their best player, okay? This is the best regression candidate going for in a positive fashion, okay? Are the Detroit Lions. Now let's look at their offense, which I think is the best in this division. So the offense, they have the best group of skill players by a mile in this division, with Kenny Golladay, who is a top 10 receiver, and Marvin Jones, who is a top 40 receiver. Danny Amendola can still get it done in the slot. He's not quite as good as he used to be, but he's still good. Matt Stafford, to me, is the 6th best quarterback, one spot below Aaron Rodgers, and right ahead of my boy Tom Brady. DeAndre Swift, I also have Kerryon Johnson in this grouping with him at 22 because I realize that Johnson will probably get the start at the beginning of the year. But regardless, their running back room is very good. They have Swift. They added Peterson today, which I think is going to add a power back experience to that running back room that might help a young guy like Swift. And also they have a guy like Bo Scarborough who played well in his games as well. They had a lot of, I didn't even mention this. We'll get to this with the defense, but they had a lot of injuries with their defense. TJ Hawkinson, I have as the 16th best tight end. He could easily be top 10 this year in a year 2 jump, but being 16 just based on his talent alone. Decker at 26. He just got signed long-term. Good player, could get better. Ragnow, incorrectly ranked. He's actually top 10, so don't look at that. But let me see actually where I ranked him. I think I had him. See, guys, I always rushing these damn graphics, and I always mess up, unfortunately. Vaitai, that is his correct ranking at 38th. I think he is an upgrade from Wagner with what they had, but I don't think he's like a upper echelon tackle by any means, but he's an upgrade over Wagner that now plays for the Packers. So, and he could be better than I think. I mean, I think PFF had him ranked as like a top 20 tackle, but that's keeping in mind that he played for the Eagles and he played guard, he played tackle, but he has guys like Kelsey and Brooks and Lane Johnson and what's the other guy? Jason Peters. So like it's a really good supporting offensive line. They apparently really like Jonah Jackson, who's their rookie guard, and I think he's going to be really good for their running game. But I think they're really well balanced, and I love what Darrell Bevell was doing with Matt Stafford last year. Running the football, play action, downfield shots, the most aggressive passing game in the NFL. Kenny Golladay led the NFL in receiving touchdowns despite not having Stafford for most of the year. So they have a lot of talent on that side of the ball. Now, defensively, they're stronger than they were. I still have my questions, specifically with their pass rush. I have, whoever their edge player is outside of Flowers is probably the weakest starter in the league. But the thing you got to realize with the Lions is that they're going to mix up. Like, I could see Collins playing linebacker, but on certain downs, I could see him playing edge rusher. I could see, a guy like Christian Jones playing on the edge or linebacker, similarly to how Collins will be utilized with Patricia. I could see Trey Flowers playing inside as a rusher or outside. I could see them throwing Williams in there on base personnel packages in the interior. Deshaun Hand, I think, is going to be their main pass rushing interior guy. They'll probably take Shelton off the field and throw Flowers on the D-line inside because that's where he's more effective, just knowing him from his Patriot days, and probably bringing in one of their slicker young edge guys like maybe the other Okora brother or Christian Jones or Jamie Collins. Their safety position is solid behind just their starters, who Deron Harmon finally gets an opportunity to play every down, which I'm very excited about. Tracy Walker is really, really good and has high upside, even past top 10. He's like their version of Patrick Chung. Desmond Trufant, I think, is going to succeed in this system. Jeffrey Okuda's had a little bit of a rougher camp, but I think he's going to show through with just his pure talent eventually. And Justin Coleman, I'm very high on. I think he's very versatile. He had a little bit of a down year last year, but I think he'll bounce back this year because they're going to have more pressure. And I really, really hope that Matt Patricia just blitzes more. I hope he's more aggressive. I hope that the plan for him was to bring in these corners, draft Okuda high, see what Belichick was doing, and then copy it, right? And copy it with his own flair, because I think Patricia always did a good job in New England with playing to his strengths. But the one flaw I will always say about him is he was far too conservative. And I want him to get a little bit more aggressive. You got to keep in mind, everybody that's ripping apart Patricia, this is the guy that came up with the scheme that dismantled Sean McVay's offense. So he must be decent at his job. He also did a fairly good job in 2018 with this defense where they were ranked in the top 15. So if they don't have their injuries to the defensive line they did a year ago and their secondary, and now they no longer have a guy like Rashawn Melvin who's being taken advantage every snap, they replace him with Desmond Trufant or Okuda. They should just be better across the board in the secondary. And I know that they always also like their other young corner. I think his name's like, I don't even know how to pronounce it. It starts with an O, I think. He's taller. Lions fans will know. And they have Will Harris at safety. So they have versatile DBs. They have depth at DB, which I really like. They have also Darryl Roberts at cornerback, and they brought in guys like Reggie Ragland at linebacker. So I really like the moves they've made to add depth to all pieces in all areas. They brought in a top 10 linebacker. They brought in a top 20 free safety. You know, they drafted a young promising corner and brought in another top 30 corner. So they've gotten a lot better talent-wise defensively, which I think ultimately will mean that they will be on the field much better because they now have more pieces, not all of them, but more pieces to execute this scheme at an elite level. So I don't think they're going to be an elite defense, but they won't be like the 30th best like last year or the second worst like last year, right? They're going to be better. They're going to be more mediocre, and that's good enough when you have an offense that could be top 10, top 5. Especially if they're able to run the ball the way that they want to. So the Lions are the team that I think is going to win the division because they have just historic numbers in terms of all these numbers are adding up to they can't be worse. Injuries, fumble luck, close game losses and win record, their injuries, Matt Stafford. I really like that they have I like their offensive scheme. I like their defensive scheme. This is a division that can be taken advantage of because I think the Packers and the Vikings are vulnerable, and I don't think the Bears are very good. So that's why I'm picking the Lions. It might be a crazy prediction. It might be out there. You might make fun of me for it, but understand why I'm doing it because I see the path to why it could happen. And honestly, I would not be surprised if Matthew Stafford is the best player in this division in 2020. I would not be surprised because last year he was outperforming Aaron Rodgers. He was. It's as simple as that. He was performing at the level as Russell Wilson, of Lamar Jackson, and of a Patrick Mahomes. That's the area he was in. Just go back and watch those games. So if he can come back and play that way, this team has a better opportunity to win this division than many people think. So I got the Lions first. Now, what's their record? I have the Lions finishing 9-7. I almost said 10-6. It's going to be 9-7 or 10-6. I think their ceiling is 11-5. But I think there's going to be one division this year that you can win at 9 games, at 9 wins. And I think it's going to be the NFC North. So I have the Lions going 9-7 and winning the division. They could go 10-6. I think their floor is 6-10. Maybe, their defense doesn't come through. They have some injuries again. They have their classic Lions luck. That certainly could happen. I wouldn't, be shocked. But their ceiling is a team that could be the next 49ers. Maybe they don't go to the Super Bowl, but they could be a team that just burst through and nobody saw it coming except for me. Remember, I was the one who picked the 49ers to win the NFC West last year and to go pretty far. So I have that similar feeling about the Lions, not quite as good of a feeling, but I have a similar feeling. So the Lions are kind of like my new 49ers, and that's why I'll be rooting for them this year. And that's why I feel strongly about them winning the division. I hope they do because I want to see the Lions be successful. But, like I said about the Packers, I also want to see Aaron Rodgers be successful. And, I really love Kirk Cousins as well. So I like all the teams in this division. It's just looking at them objectively. I think the Lions are the most well balanced, and I think they're gonna. I think they're gonna do it. I think they're gonna do it for the first time. I think so. That would be pretty awesome. And what weirder of a year than 2020 to do it, right? So, guys, give me your predictions. Paul says Lions 11-5, Vikings 9-7, Bears 8-8, and Packers 7-9. Kevin Durkant says, bro, why do I feel like the NFC North will be a carbon copy of the NFC East last year, except without the injuries? Maybe. Well, do you mean like the records? That's possible. Because there always is a division like that every year. There always is. Ultra says the Lions split the division. They also lose to Atlanta, Houston, and Tampa. They go 10-6 and first in the division, fourth in the NFC. Ceiling is 11-5, floor is 7-9, floor is 4-12 if Stafford gets hurt. Nicholas says that this prediction is very biased. Joseph says he has them going 2-14, getting the third pick. I like this offense, and I think Hawkinson will break out. The defense, game luck, and coaching, I think, are horrendous. I think that will hold them back. Well, Joseph, I'll just say in 2020 in the NFL, it's hard to go 2-14 when you have one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the league. And that's what I believe Stafford is. So if Stafford is healthy, they cannot go 2-14. The worst they can do is like 6-10, like 5-11 at absolute worst. That would mean the rest of the team is completely terrible. Chicago's 2-14, GSP says. LGRW says Vikings 9-7, Lions 8-8, Packers 8-8, and the Bears 7-9. Yes, I'm a Pats fan. Lions 10-6, says GSP. Young 21 says happy the Lions signed AP. How old am I? I am now 24. Too old, bro. Rob says my projections: Vikings 10-6, Bears 9-7, Packers 8-8, Lions 6-10. Nicholas says Bears 10-6, Vikings 9-7, Packers 8-8, and Lions 6-10. Durkant has the Lions 10. I'm very shocked that Durkant and I agree on this. All right, he has Lions 10-6, Packers 8-8, Vikings 6-10, and Bears 5-11. I also want to give a shout out to a creator on YouTube, Dose of Dion, who does Detroit Lions content. Some of you Lions fans may know who he is. He's a great creator. If you're a Lions fan and you follow me or subscribe to me and you don't follow him, shout out to him. I'm trying to have him on my channel at least a couple times. I think I'm going to be on his channel a couple times. We've become kind of like internet communicators. Maybe not friends yet, but communicators. So shout out to him. He's a good guy. I watch his videos quite a bit because I've been following the Lions because I've had this hot take and I want to check in on it. So, yeah, I mean, go check him out. I'm going to do a couple more. I'm going to stick around for a couple more minutes, and then I'm going to go do my fantasy draft. So Jeremy says 10-6 for the Vikings, Packers 10-6, Lions 8-8, Bears 5-11. Ultra says 10-6 for the Lions, Packers 8-8, Vikings 7-9, Bears 5-11. Alex says Packers 10-6, Vikings 8-8, Lions 7-9, and Bears 5-11. Nicholas says, Mitch, it's hard to go 3-13 when you have an elite defense. Not really. We've seen it with the Jags before. Highlight says, and I didn't pick 3-13. I picked 5-11. Highlight says 10-6 for the Lions. Lions offense is going to carry them. Unstoppable. Sure, Ultra, I'd appreciate that. Do you think Stafford wins comeback player of the year? Yes, I predicted that. Go check the awards video out that I did. Brian says, dang, 24, you're not that much younger than my teacher. Really? Wow. So the Lions fans know who he is. That's cool. Michael says, love Dion's excitement, drinks a ton of Kool-Aid, but he's a good guy. That's good. All right. I think I'm going to hang it up there, guys. No, I'm not. I'm not in the fan to fan network. I believe that's what it's called. I'm not. It's just the bottom line view, bro. Read the sign. But I think that's where I'm going to end it. Thank you for joining my NFC North preview. I might be doing my NFC West preview after my draft, or I'll just do it tomorrow. But regardless, NFC South tomorrow is for sure tomorrow. NFC West, I was thinking maybe because of Western time zone, people would be up later, and maybe I'll do it like really late tonight for East Coasters. But we'll see. Maybe I'll just wait till tomorrow. All right, guys, thanks for joining me. This has been probably the most fun live stream. If you haven't already, Gronk spike the like button and subscribe to the channel. Peace.